Well, in typical fashion, it's supposed to be like 39 degrees here in the Raleigh garden, and there is a frost advisory because when they predict anything in the 30s, you got to think that some outlying areas and some areas that potentially that normally drop below that predicted temperature will get some frost. I had a spot like that at the nursery, and we had just ended up parking our trucks there, you know, the delivery truck and everything there, because almost every morning we'd have frost there. You know, it'd be 35, 36, 37 at my house and 3 miles away. In this one spot at the nursery, there was always frost. And so I didn't try to grow anything in that space. It was just a weird little spot, but you get those little pockets like that will drop below everything else, and you need to bring them in. So anything predicted in the 30s for the next couple weeks until we get to our average last frost date of middle April, and then looking out beyond that, we'll continue to protect some things. So we had brought some things back from Florida that were out ahead of everything, and those things we'll just protect them from frost. I'm not that worried. I'm not worried that they're going to get killed unless it was well below freezing, and then we'd bring them completely in. But several things here, like these lantana. I don't know if you've watched the video we did, one of the garden task videos from last week. We talked about these little lucky lantana. We were at Balcom's nursery, and when we left there, I was like, why didn't I grab them while I was there? And so we could add them to the garden this season. And they had all 5 of them that I showed in that video, if you go back and take a look at any of that footage. But there's kind of an orange one, a white one, a lavender one, kind of a multicolored one, and a solid yellow one, roughly. That would be the description of the 5 that I have. But they were nice enough. I emailed them the next day and, you know, said, is there any way you could send them to me, because I'd like to show them off in the garden. They actually put some things in Home Depots in North Carolina and garden centers and other places. So these will be available everywhere. So they were nice enough to send them to me. Knew if I talked about them, maybe you guys would go out and possibly buy them. So that was the connection there. But these are annuals for us. These are going to be a different, you know, some of the lantana we use in the landscape here are perennial. They come back year over year. This is like a zone 10 perennial. So it's definitely not going to come back, but they really put on a show during the growing season. But they sent all 5 to us. They came out of a greenhouse and then were in a box, and I put them immediately out here in the full sun. And you can see 24 hours in a box and coming out of a greenhouse that wasn't in full sun, just a little tiny bit of burn on that leaf. So be careful transitioning stuff that you get mail order directly out in the sun. Work them out a little bit slower. This is 0 long-term impact on this plant. This plant will grow so fast, it'll come back out of it. And most things wouldn't have that big of an issue. We do have a pepper that we brought back that's a tropical pepper plant. Peppers are tropical. That we brought back from Florida as well. Anything below really 50 degrees, these peppers aren't all that happy. We're gonna have to overwinter that one in the house year over year. And then the dahlias and the other things we put in the Friday Jumpstart video, which one of them's already putting some growth on here. Those will go in the house tonight. So some of the things that if a frost got on it, they would be badly damaged. Things that came out of a greenhouse, things that are tropical, you know, those things have to come in the house. And then the shrubs and other things that are just a little ahead, I'll just put those on the back porch back here. Holly and Griffin are back here behind me, listening to me run my mouth. We have gotten most of our seeds up. We're missing a few things that haven't germinated, but most everything's at least germinated here, and we've got a bunch more trays in the house. We have acclimated these to the full sun, and be careful with that as well. You're starting your seed in the house, even under that light inside the house, where I got that light on 12 hours a day. That light is not bright enough to be like the sunlight is out here. And so I think we brought them out, Steph, it was probably 4 hours one day. We set them on the back steps back here in the shade and let the sun come over them just for a few minutes. And then the next day a little more, and the next day a little more. And now we've got them transitioned out here in the full sun. But see, we're keeping them up off the ground so no rabbit comes along and tries to chew them off to the content, you know, back to the pots. They will do that with some things. Some things they won't mess with, but some things they'll. If you had okra germinated in one of these trays, rabbits would come from far and wide and heat it right down to the tray. So we keep them up off the ground. Those will have to go in the house tonight, because definitely the tomatoes that have germinated, the peppers that have germinated here, peppers, tomatoes, they do not like to be below 45 degrees or so. Just, they don't like it at all. It stunts them. It prevents them from taking up nutrients, and we've started to fertilize our seedlings at this point. So every other watering, we mix fish emulsion into the water. That's how we fertilize, and we just, whatever watering we're doing on them going forward, every other time they get fish emulsion fertilizer. That gets them going. So I think there's 4 other trays in the house or something like that. So that makes...
Which is why they're all here now.
Yeah, which is why these are out here, because we don't have room for all of them at one time. So that's 12 trays times 50, that's 600 plants, plus we'll buy some things in, plus we have other things that we've already acquired or whatever, and will be actually some things coming mail order as well. So lots of things going on, and again, we're just keeping a few things mobile and ready to go in the house at a moment's notice here, because we've got about 2.5 more weeks to protect them, something like that. I think I'm going to try to rewire that Japanese maple that I wired into a curve. We're going to try that in this video, see if I can get it rewired. I haven't given it probably the proper attention since I originally did that video. So we're going to do that and then show you some things that are flowering here in the garden. This is that Dragon Master Japanese maple that I started to show, I thought probably 2 years ago almost now, how to turn it into give it a contorted trunk. I have one over here in the garden that I've had that Japanese maple a long, long time. It stayed in containers for years, and it's kind of the centerpiece of the garden over there. So I'm just doing something similar to this one, and I did the initial bend on it here, but I haven't readdressed it. It was in a container last year, and at the end of the season, we took all of our containers and planted any shrubs into the vegetable garden for the winter. And that protected them through the winter time. And now we're slowly pulling things out of the vegetable garden and deciding what we're going to do with them, if they're going to be reused as container plants or go in the ground or whatever. But I had initially wired this. This is just a bonsai wire. You can get this on Amazon. But it's a very flexible wire. It can be reused, which is one of the nice things about it. I've got the rest of this roll, but I don't think I need any more. I just want to get this. These two pieces of wire that I used. The bottom here I doubled up on because it was needed a sturdier base. But that takes one of them off right there. And then we'll see how well it's holding its shape too once we get this wire off. It's been a while, so almost 2 years probably like this. I would imagine it's holding its shape pretty good at this point, and it looks like it definitely is. So I don't want to do any damage to the tree here in this process of taking this off. I had put the stake in there. All right, we are on our way, aren't we? That first bend is pretty much set. I will go down into that, about where that first bend starts, and start from there, and then just get this around to here. It won't reach back around to there, but almost it will. And then we'll, as it grows this season, I'll be able to wrap those new pieces of growth around. Let's see. I'll put a little hook, kind of a hooked in on it like that right there, and that way I can kind of wrap it around a spot, and that will hold it firm in place. I hope you think you can see that. And then again, this wire is just awesome for being able to wrap around. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm swinging. Okay. Try not to do any damage to anything that's leafed out here. Eventually, I'll clean these stems up of foliage, but and we'll have most of the foliage will be up here. But in the meantime, it kind of needs this material just to produce some energy, right? Okay. Okay, how's that looking, stuff? I think that's pretty good, right? Okay. I just got to start bringing this piece around. It's really just about wrapping this. I don't think I need that 2 pieces of wire right this minute. Okay, and I can get funky with it at this point. The tree is not completely set in the container, so it's bending over a little bit. I can get funky at this point, and I could twist this, you know, like that, and make it where not only does it do this, but it does a bit of that as well. I think I'm just gonna leave it like this, and I think I'm going to bend it down just a bit so the 2 pieces are a bit tighter, okay? And what we'll do is, as this leafs out a little more this season, I'll add that second wire, and I'll start it somewhere right about here, and I'll start wrapping it around that direction. We'll leave this little piece over to the side for now, but second bend is in place. I hope to maybe get half of the third bend. Next year we'll get the third bend complete, and then we'll just let it go from there. But it's a slow process, but it's kind of fun, right? If I had it in the ground, it'd probably have grown a little bit more at this point, but I've been moving it around in containers and that kind of thing. I know a lot of people will be like, why would you hurt that poor tree? It doesn't hurt the tree at all. And in fact, if I do something like this to make it more valuable, probably people will take even better care of it than they would have before, just because it becomes so interesting and valuable from having put that time into it. So that's done. Dragon Master, Japanese maple, contorted trunk. One of the most talked about plants in the garden, or asked about plants in the garden, is the Carolina Midnight Loropetalum, which is one of the larger growing Loropetalums. As you can see, that thing is probably 12 to 15 feet in height, something like that. And it's coming into bloom. It's not quite full flower, but I didn't know when we record something else out here in the garden, so we'll go ahead and show it off. But you can see Carolina Midnight has the really dark foliage, and the flower is a really hot pink, a really dark pink. It's not quite red, but certainly much darker pink than others. I hear you. I got a bird. Come on around, Stefan, with the camera. I've got birds fussing at me because it's a towhee here that's fussing at me that we're occupying his space. We have so many birds out here right now. It is a wild number of birds out here. The Purple Daydream Loropetalum is definitely showing off, and it's not in full flower either. It's maybe 50% of the way there. I think in the next, as long as it doesn't get any kind of frost or freeze on it. And I don't think we're gonna frost here. I don't at all, because we're in the city. But you know, you never know. And so as long as it doesn't get a frost or a freeze on it, it'll keep opening up. And it's kind of normal for them to just bloom so silly early. This one also is this really dark pink. You know, you could almost, if at the right angle, at the right time of day, this one almost looks red. And then Emerald Snow, constant show off in the garden. This one will bloom now, and then you'll have flowers on it in the summertime, and you'll have flowers on it in the fall. But the full flowering is opening up now, and you'll see they start off with like a lot of other white flowers with a bit of a greenish hue to it, and then gets bright white out here. Green foliage variety, and we'll call this one a semi-dwarf. The Purple Daydream over there we would call a dwarf. This one will probably reach, I would bet this thing would get 8 feet tall if I just let it. And if I let it grow for the next 10 years without pruning it, that's what it would do, because that's just, I mean, it's just gonna keep layering up. But as soon as this is done, if you're following along with the channel, I'll take these longer vertical branches, that one that's in full bloom right now, and we'll chase that down in the plant and cut that down. And we'll leave it open and airy and interesting looking. But we'll probably take almost half of this height out of it in a pruning pretty soon, and probably maybe even narrow it in just a bit. And it'll come out and grow about that much again. And this will be about where it is again next year when it flowers. So that'll be the strategy on Emerald Snow. But I know this could be called the Loropetalum channel, because I always end up having to get questions about Loropetalum. They're always in some angle here in the garden. Purple foliage varieties, green foliage varieties. There are ones that get light pink flowers, dark pink flowers, red flowers, white flowers. They all bloom super early like this though. One other thing I forgot to point out is in the beginning of this video, you were seeing the cart with the seedlings on it that were put inside. And then you saw the cart again over here when I was doing the Japanese maple work. If you're interested in knowing the history of that cart, because that cart has been with me for 39 years, and Steph as well, it's in Sunday's Q&A video coming up. The Amelanchier or serviceberry is in almost peak bloom. It looks like about maybe 50% of the flowers are open, and then the buds coming right behind that. Whether we get fruit finished on this is who knows. If we do, the birds will get them. They are fantastic to eat. I mean, they're just, to me, almost better than blueberries. They just have 0 shelf life, so you have to eat them right off the tree. But if you get an opportunity to eat any of these service berries off one of our native service berries, it is great. I guess this tree's now reached about 12 feet. I've got it permanently staked. We staked it in a video about staking, a 5 Minute Friday video a few weeks back. Like a lot of these spring white flowering trees, the smell is a bit much for me. It's so sweet that it's at the point where it's, you know, a little putrid almost to me. I mean, for some people, I think they might find it appealing, and for me, I just don't. And that's true with a lot of these white flowering trees. We were at Freedom Park in Charlotte last year when these were full fruit, and Steph and I started eating them, and then the next thing you know, everybody was eating them. But they have a big long line of them there. If you're in that park in Charlotte at some point this year, later in the season, when the fruit fully form on them, that's a good opportunity to try these service berries. The species tulip, or this one's Tulipia humulus Persian Pearl, I think is the name of this one. It's closed up for the evening. As the shadow from the house came across these, they closed up, but you can see them in the little piece of B-roll here, wide open during the day. But this is one that wanted to film. This is a Ruth Bancroft ficus. This is a cross between Ficus pumila, which is the climbing ficus. It's a vine, and then fig, which is a tree, or a large shrub. So it's a combo of a climbing, vining ficus and a shrub or tree ficus. And it got slammed in November. It's been here for long enough that we were thinking that it was okay, and then it got slammed so hard we thought it might be dead. But we can see it coming up from several spots out here. It'll recover super fast. But if you're here for the open garden in the summer, this is one of the coolest plants here in the garden. It was a gift to us by some friends down in South Carolina a couple years ago. Another species tulip, this one's Lilac Wonder. This is one that's been very reliable coming back in the garden. It's got a little bit of a broader leaf than some of the other species tulips, but we have a lot of clusters of these around the garden. They're just so cool. And look how, again, this one has not closed up yet. So it will close up during the evening and you won't be able to see that yellow. It'll be protected, kind of like this one is, with that little bit of pink on the outside. And then during the day, they're just open like this with that big, beautiful yellow center on them. You may be able to see Holly back here behind me. She just decided to take a break in the wood chips path back there. So I sat down on the bench and took the thumbnail for this photo. That's where you have seen that happening, but I don't know, you know, that's a good spot to lay down. I think this will be the last footage of this group of tulips. But when I talked about them the other day, I just mentioned that we have the purple hyacinths down below, and I didn't tell you what variety that is. It's Purple Sensation is this variety. And I think it looks so good underplanted right there, right, with that purple right at the base of these. This is Shocks and Struts tulip mix from Color Blends. And then the hyacinths are from them as well, but these are just perfect. This has been a perfect combo, but I can see the tulips are starting to look a little tattered on day 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever it's been, where they've been kind of in full glory out here. They've probably lasted a little longer than they usually do, just because it's been a little bit cooler all around. When I was talking about the loropetalum, I forgot to mention they're in that witch hazel family with that little frilly flower. We'll be putting the native witch hazel in the native garden pretty soon. There's Asian witch hazels as well. There's a lot of hybrid witch hazels, and that family is a pretty good sized family of plants that a lot of them end up being pretty good ornamentals for us. Distilium's in that family, and I've shown off a few Distilium recently that we have here in the garden. And of course, that's become such a big landscape plant in the trade. And then also we have a Fothergilla over here. It'll be blooming pretty soon, another member of that family with that frilly flower. A lot of them are fragrant. The lower petal of them aren't fragrant. But there you go. There's some things, again, we have going on in the Raleigh garden. What do you have going on in your garden? Let us know in the comment section down below. And thanks for watching.